Hello, I'm Sherry. I'm from Hale Farm and Village. I'm the Agriculture and Horticulture Coordinator. And today I was going to show you some things that we're doing in the greenhouse. To start seeds in the greenhouse here at Hale Farm and Village, I start with a good quality seed sowing mix. So we use and we're going to be using a soil block maker, which is this tool right here. And in order for this to work properly, we need to get the soil nice and wet. You can see that I put water in there, but as soon as I pull that away, it's dry. So water sheds off of the dry soil. So I need to get my hands in there and really mix it up so that it's all wet. And actually, I'll add more water, probably 2 to 3 times, and then mix it up. When you're using a soil block tool, you want to have the proper flat or tray to put the blocks in. So one of the reasons to get the soil really wet to start with is because you're going to be compressing this, and this is holding the blocks together. So the moisture level has to be kind of high in the soil before you start. So I'm putting even pressure down, and then when I start to get to the bottom and start moving it back and forth a little bit until it fully compresses inside. And then I move this over to the flat and press down, and the soil blocks come out. So when you start, you want your soil to be about 2 heights of this, or 1.5 height. Every soil that you get out of a bag is going to be a different consistency, so you'll really have to make adjustments for your own soil recipe. This works really well with ours, and as you can see, this forms a ball really easy. It holds together, and if I squeeze, some water comes out. So in between every couple of soil block fills, I sort of get in there and fluff the soil up a little bit because it will start getting really compacted at the bottom and around where you've gone like this. And you really want your soil blocks, when you put them in your flat, to be a consistent density inside. So sometimes when you're using the soil block, most often it happens if your soil's not quite wet enough. When you're forming the soil blocks and then you're releasing them into your flat, sometimes the top might be missing, or they'll fall apart when you pull your soil block maker off of the top. Most of the time that happens when your soil mixture is not wet enough. So you'll want to check that, but also sometimes the soil will stick inside your soil blocks and it'll just get too sticky, so then things start falling apart. In that case, you just take a bucket of water and rinse stuff off and start fresh and clean. So the soil blocker has these dibbles built right in, so it leaves these indents right into each block where you could drop a seed in. So I've chosen a slightly larger seed, zinnias. We're going to start with some zinnias. So I make a label with what it is I'm going to be putting in each flat. Zinnia seeds are a bit bigger, so they're a little easier to sow, but I make a groove in the seed packet, and inside I just shake it until the seeds start lining up in this little groove. Sometimes you have to shake some of them down and shake some of them forward, and I'm aiming for 1 seed into each dibble. If you have larger seeds, sometimes it's easier to just dump them in your hand and plunk them out like this. Although I will warn or advise that if you have extras in your hand, that if you're putting them back into the seed packet, you make sure that there's no dirt on your hands and that your hands aren't wet. Because if you get dirt or moisture in the seed packet along with the seeds, they could start germinating in the packet. Generally on your seed packets, it'll tell you if the seeds like to be sown at what depth. So you'll just want to read the directions and do as it says. So these zinnias do like to be covered a little bit, so I'm just going to go through and pinch them, make sure they're tucked in, cover them up a little bit. This is the zinnia flat where I went and pinched and put a little more soil, heavier soil on top of each seed just to settle it in. If you were sowing some really fine seeds or seeds that do not require to be covered, just to settle them in a little bit and make sure they don't fly out of the container when you're watering them, I take some vermiculite, or you can use some fine soil as well, and just sprinkle this over the tops of them. And I'm using a Parmesan cheese container. It works pretty well. The reason I extended the watering wand past the flat was to not stop on the flat and create large puddles which would overflow the soil blocks and wash the seed out. Depending on your greenhouse or your growing conditions, you'll have to just pay attention to how often you need to water. Mine's pretty well watered in. I may not have to water for 5 days, but I am going to check on it every day. If it starts to dry out, I'll water it again. Just pay attention to your seed packet and how wet it's suggesting you keep this soil. Even if you don't have a greenhouse space, you can do this in your own windowsill, in the brightest window in your house.